Models are continuing to show an active weather pattern beginning around Christmas and continuing towards the new year ahead. This video is a full breakdown of all of those trends, including some temperature trends as well.
One Nation Weather.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune into this video. If you're new to the channel and enjoy this video, I'd love it if you subscribe down below after watching. And of course, I like to do this every now and then. Everyone, I'd love it if you'd comment down below. Let me know where you're watching from here as we push towards Christmas. Merry Christmas early to everyone. I'll probably have one more video right around or just before Christmas, but I want to go ahead and give you a look at the full travel forecast as we make our way into Christmas week before we do anything else. Here's your overview of what's coming as we go into our Monday, December 23rd of 2024. A chance of some rain. It's going to be very light and scattered in nature from parts of Oklahoma into Arkansas, Missouri, and the rest of the Midwest. That will transition over more to a light to moderate snow as you push into parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. That's because the energy supporting this brief clipper is down into parts of south central Canada and around the Great Lakes. As we go overnight Monday and heading into our Tuesday, the early morning time frame of our Christmas Eve, some snow, maybe before you wake up in some cases back there into the interior northeast. The bottom part of this clipper as well is going to have a little bit of a chance of some rain, and that's going to kind of combine with some energy coming out of the southwest U.S. to maybe even form some thunderstorms as you go down here towards parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. We'll have to watch those on our Christmas Eve. Additionally, we'll have to watch all of this rain and snow. It's going to be pretty confined, at least during this time frame, to parts of Washington, Oregon, and California. But all of this energy that makes its way into the west as we make our way through the entirety of this week and even towards the upcoming weekend is going to help in eventually fueling storms that make their way into the central U.S. One day that looks a little bit drier, though, overall, is our Christmas Day itself. When you're opening presents, and then as we push into the afternoon, if you have any outdoor plans, things are going to begin to warm up. So not a white Christmas for many zones, but just a little bit of a chance of rain if you're down here, stretching out of parts of the lower Mississippi Valley and then pushing up here maybe towards the Ohio Valley. Maybe some snow. It looks very isolated, and the models have downtrended on some of this, possibly back into parts of the central Rockies, pushing back into Utah. Most zones, though, on our Christmas Day itself, not looking too active, and that is a good news for folks out there. Here we go, though, as we make our way into our Thursday. That's when things begin to get a little bit more active, especially back into the west and then into the central U.S. once again. Some of that snow that was in the Rockies forms a low coming out into the south central, maybe even more towards the north central plains, depending on which model you look at. I'll break down some of those discrepancies in a minute. Certainly looks like at least this zone, maybe even pushing as far north as the Midwest, getting in on some of this rain by the time we go towards Thursday into Friday, and then back here into the Pacific Northwest, continuing with rain into the lower elevations and most of Idaho even. Look at that. You can see it forming some snowfall, heavy snowfall at that by this point in time. Once we get out of Friday and then push towards Saturday, it looks like more rain for some of the central U.S. I'll cover that more in detail later in the video. But for now, I want to go ahead and briefly talk about snow, and then we'll get into the breakdown of who gets the heaviest rain for this week ahead. Starting off with that GFS model's snowfall accumulation forecast as we push through the next 5 days or so. You can see as we make our way through our Tuesday, through our Wednesday, through our Thursday, and then eventually to the end of the week out of Thursday into Friday. A lot of snow back into the west, but we do have that little clipper that's going to come through Monday into Tuesday here through parts of the Great Lakes. Some of these totals here coming out of Wisconsin into north central Michigan could briefly accumulate to 2 to 4 inches, maybe even some isolated spots closer to half a foot there in the northeastern part of the Gulf of Michigan. We'll have to watch that. Very light accumulation into Detroit, and most of these spots into the interior northeast picking up a couple quick inches, and that'll be about it. Maybe 2 to 4 inches in some spots around that Monday to Tuesday time frame. But look at all this snow out west. This is the main zone that we're going to have to watch as we push into the week ahead. Some of these totals up here into the Cascades in particular, upwards of 3 feet as you push there into the eastern side of Seattle. Look at these mountains right here picking up maybe even 50 plus inches of snow by the time the week is all said and done. And a lot of these other mountains out west, even in the mountains of California, eastern Oregon, into Idaho, we will pick up at least a foot. Either way, though, regardless of what happens with the snowfall as we push into the week ahead, I want to go ahead and break down who is most likely to see impacts from the later week storms, because that's what's a little bit more in terms of discrepancies in our models. First of all, here, what I'm showing you on your screen is a blend of our GFS ensemble members, giving you a look at what is happening. 500 millibar level, which is 15 to 20,000 feet into the atmosphere. Oranges and reds indicate ridging. Blues indicate troughing, where the jet stream is dipping down into the ridges. And you can see as we push into the week ahead, overall, the main flow, especially as we go through early to midweek, is a general ridge here in the east. Just a little bit of that continued troughing from that jet stream diving down here into the western U.S. Everything moving through the west is eventually coming to the central U.S., and that's when we see things get interesting, especially with that storm I showed on the European model earlier that's going to come out here by the time we go into around our Thursday, heading into our Friday into the south central plains. We know it's going to be active on and off down here in the far south central U.S. as we go through most of the week as a result of little pieces of energy working their way down here. But overall, this GFS ensemble collection is showing the entire interaction of the trough and ridge happening right through here, which could allow for a lot more precip to push even further north into parts of the central plains, maybe even the north central plains and the Midwest, as we go to Thursday towards Friday and towards Saturday with these systems making their way out of the west into the central United States. How does that differ from our European model and its ensemble members? This is that exact same time, Friday early morning, but with your European ensembles. Look at what it's showing. A much weaker piece of energy actually escaping the Pacific Northwest and making its way down here into the south central plains, which would mean mostly just the light precip I showed you earlier and a lot more scattered in nature down here towards the south central U.S. That's certainly something to watch as we go to the end of this week. I'll be keeping an eye on those model updates, and of course, I'll keep you updated whether it's with videos or in the community tab of my channel right here. I'm going to give you a look at the more bullish GFS ensembles, though, so that you can see what is most likely to happen, and then where we could even see some additional rainfall if you go with this solution as we go through this week. First of all, here, this is what all the models and ensemble members are pretty much in agreement on, is everything overnight through our Christmas and into our Thursday, December 26th, into the early morning time frame of this day. By this point in time, we will have seen enough rainfall down here to add up to around an inch or maybe even 2 inches in some parts of the far south central U.S. Notice nothing really extending up here into the north central U.S. much just yet. And then we'll also be watching that continued flow of heavy rain with a few inches, maybe in some isolated flooding going on day by day with that precip into the Pacific Northwest. By the time we go out of Thursday into Friday and into Saturday, here's what that trough making its way further up against that ridge can actually do, as I just showed you here with those GFS ensembles. Notice what that means for your rainfall solution. We could even see at least a half an inch to an inch of rain, even as far north as the north central U.S., pushing into the Great Lakes by the time we go out of Thursday into Friday and into Saturday as a result of the active weather pattern. The zone that all of the models and ensembles agree on, though, continuing to add up with rain regardless, is going to be down here into Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, where that continued flow of moisture could even result in 3 to 4 to maybe even 5 inches of rain by the time you go through Saturday afternoon. We'll have to watch the flood threat that gradually builds up there. Now, though, I do want to talk about some of our temperature trends as we push through this week, because I showed you there's a ridge, and that means things are going to warm up big time for a lot of folks. It's not going to be a very warm start to the week, though. Here's your Monday as we push into Monday afternoon. You can see where we've kind of got a dip in the jet stream, at least to start the week. The ridge is going to continue to build up against that, though, day by day. 30s for highs anywhere here out of the upper Midwest, pushing towards the Northeast, even some 20s there in the interior Northeast. Meanwhile, down here, we've got 50s and 60s. As we go out of Monday, heading into our Tuesday, look at how the highs begin to start warming up down here, especially in the south central United States. This whole quarter right here is going to have a really warm week ahead, as we're looking at plenty of 60s, 70s, and even as you push down there in some extreme cases towards far southern Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, pushing upwards of 75 towards 80, that is going to be a very warm time. As we go out of Tuesday into Wednesday, we start to see 40s as far north as Nebraska, southern Iowa, parts of Illinois, Indiana, and remember, these are areas that could easily be in the 30s this time of the year, trying to warm up above freezing, even as far north as the Canadian border up there and to the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin. It could easily be in the teens this time of the year for highs. By Thursday, once we begin to see more of that energy possibly moving out of the west and at least down here into the south central U.S., maybe even further north, that flow just continues to build up. At least some 70s down here into Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, maybe even some 60s extending out of there into parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, and southern Missouri, and then 50s as far north as central and north central parts of Illinois. The warm-up only builds out of Thursday and into Friday, though. By Friday, look at this line right here. This is your 50-degree line as far north as north central Kansas, north central parts of Missouri into southern Iowa. Could be very near 50 in Des Moines, Iowa, parts of Chicago, Illinois, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and even over here into eastern parts of Ohio by our Friday afternoon, and even in the areas here in the 30s and 40s right around the north central U.S. This is well above average by at least 20 degrees for this time of the year as that ridge continues to build. While I'm on the discussion of the ridge and the temperature trends, I do want to go ahead and break down for you now what is anticipated not only with the near-term temperature anomalies, but also the bigger changes that could eventually come down the line as we go towards the new year. First of all, here, just going through the week ahead, I'm going to pause it as we go into our Thursday afternoon. This pretty much sums up how warm it is for most of the country as we go through our Christmas week, and especially as it goes on. All of these reds from these European ensemble members indicating 10, 15, 20 degree above average warmth pushing out of the west, making its way here through the central United States. And of course, that will only be amplified depending on our locations of those low pressures that form as we go to the end of this week. By the time we go through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and towards Sunday, these ensemble members are really going bullish anywhere from the Mountain West all the way to the East Coast with this warmth. Some spots going upwards of 20 to 25 degrees above normal for this time of the year. And considering this is from a longer range confidence, that is pretty crazy to be seeing, that kind of warmth in late December. But here we go, as we go out of late December and start pushing towards early January, with all these storms, eventually one of them's got to go towards the East Coast and bring some cool air out of the west and northwest with it. Here we go. These European ensemble members are certainly beginning to show at least some level of flow of confidence here for some cooler than average air to make its way out of the Pacific Northwest, diving through the central U.S., and then at least towards the southeast by around our Thursday, January 2nd. And then as we go even beyond that time frame, it could get even cooler across a lot of the country. Does that mean winter storms? Possibly. I'll just show you the solution from the European model so that you can have a little bit of fun and hoping for some snow for your area as we go further down the line. Look at this system. This could be one around the New Year's Eve, heading into New Year's time frame that brings in some of that cool air. Rain for a lot of the southeast, maybe some snow as you go on up here to the Ohio Valley with whatever brings the cool blast in. We don't really know this far out, but one thing I can tell you for sure, there's going to be a lot of hype, especially when you got model runs showing stuff like this. Once the cool blast is in place, could we have a mega snowstorm somewhere on the East Coast or in the Midwest or in the Ohio Valley, wherever? We could, but again, it's way too far out to talk about that. So let's recap what we can talk about, and of course that is especially this video that focused on Christmas week. It is going to be warmer for a lot of zones in comparison to average, with isolated rainfall in some spots and some high elevation Pacific Northwest snow by Christmas. Active flow will continue by the end of this week into the western and central U.S. Still some discrepancies in the models regarding that pattern. Warmer air will continue with an active setup until a big New Year's flip, and then of course the question will be snow or no as we push towards January. And as we push towards January, I'd love if you'd be a new subscriber right here on the channel if you have not already, so I can continue to deliver consistent, accurate, and educational forecasts to more and more people as we push into 2025. Make sure to hit that button down below. Check out some of those links in the description to this video. But that's going to be it for this one. I'll catch you in the next update sometime soon.
One nation weather.